Okay, welcome everybody to Chassidus from the holy city of Tzfat. Ilana wanted to know if we need Wi-Fi today. Sure. What do I say?
It's okay. We've
You'll say we're set up. We're set up. Thanks. So, story is that I'm very excited to teach you today about the Baal Shem Tov. Now, in order to understand the Baal Shem Tov, you have to understand a thing or two about the Torah. Because the Baal Shem Tov was really the fifth dimension of the Torah. You understand what I'm saying? Huh?
The fifth time what?
זה כמו, זה הדרגה החמישית, כן? פרדס, פשט רמז רוסות והדרגה החמישית. So, there are four levels of the Torah. The Torah is, of course, basically Hashem. It's more, the Torah is not just a book. Every book, if you think about it, I remember this guy, I brought out this guy to speak. I was a rabbi in university. We had a couple hundred students, and he said a great line. He says, Jews have been accused of being everything, communists and capitalists and this and that, but no one accused us of being stupid, right? So if you have the smartest people in the world reading a book for 3,300 years every single week, you say by the time like 3,000 years pass, don't you think you figured out what the book says? Like how many times can you read a novel? Once? Twice? How many times can you watch a movie? You got it already. The answer is, the Torah is Hashem. Very important to understand. Some things are Hashem. Just to give you an example, there's a concept of the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem. So I have a friend, a very special Jew, and he said as follows. He said that God can take his whole essence and put it on one point. Right? So I read about this a little bit in my book, Kabbalah Love, that there's something called expression and essence. So if you want to say, who are you essentially? So I have to get to know you. Like I know you a little bit. So generally speaking, I say, wow, you're a nice person, you're a yid. But I can't say I fully know the depths of your heart, right? So the more time you spend with someone, the more you get to know that person. And Judaism, knowledge is actually the same word as like intimacy. Intimacy means you know them. You know, there's a famous teaching that there were two people, two drunks in a Russian tavern. And everything we hear and see is a lesson. So Ivan is telling Alex, or Alexei, he says, well, it's not going too well.
no, it's okay.
Ivan's telling Alexei, he says, Alexei, you don't love me. So Alexei says to Ivan, what are you talking about? I love you, Ivan. They're both like quite slobbered. And he says, if you loved me, you would know what's bothering me. Very profound. If you love me, you know what's bothering you. I remember seeing this thing of this story this guy wrote, and this very bright guy from Meir Sha'arim, and somebody came and he needed some help. He wanted a blessing from him. He says, write down your kids' names. He says, oh, I see that your relationship with this kid isn't so good, and in any event, he says, how did you know? He says, I could tell by the way you wrote his name. In other words, an individual who has a true empathy, a true feeling for someone else, should be able to understand that person. And even in marriage, it's very important for men to know, I think, and you can confirm, but I think what a lot of women really want is they want to be understood. We're not here to be in a relationship. One of my lines, if I may quote myself, because I've written a couple of lines, is what a woman wants in a relationship is a relationship, right? So, you know, it's not that complicated. What people want in a relationship ultimately is to not be able to say anything and you know what they're feeling. That's why real relationships don't occur so much in flamboyancy, they occur in silence. Even intimacy is in, according to Judaism, has to be in the dark. In silence, you can get to know someone more than you can get to know them. You can go to look at Elvis Presley, Oliver Shalom. You can go look at an actor, but you don't know that person. All you know is the face that they're showing you. On the other hand, if you actually take the time, and more time like in silence, to be connected to somebody, if you do that, then what you'll find is that you get to know them. Now, many of us have a big problem in life. You know what our problem is? We can't be in silence with ourselves. We have been given an image of ourselves that is false. Somewhere along the line, we came up with a negative self-image. And therefore, we're making so much noise in order not even to be hearing our own self. Now, it doesn't mean that in life a person shouldn't be active. A person should be active. But a person should be proactive, not reactive. There's proactive out of convictions, like we were saying the other day. And then there is reactive out of emotions. So if I'm always, one of the definitions I saw, I don't know what it was in a dictionary, and they were saying that, what's the definition of a bully? Somebody that has a lot of bluster, you know, he's like, you know. Where's that coming from? It's coming from a sense of not wanting to see my own self, right? Just like if a person came into an environment and they're very loud and everything, why are they doing that? They're doing that because they don't believe that the way they truly are is accepted or acceptable. They've gotten a negative self-image where usually given to them, most studies show most people have been bullied, and therefore it's like a cover. So if we want to go into the Torah, we want to go into the essence, what we're going to realize is basically really what has occurred in life is, you know, people are trying to go to Mars. Elon Musk, God bless him, you know, he's trying to go to Mars. Now, when they try to go to the moon, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was a very wise person, said they're not going to find much. What did they find on the moon? In fact, I read a book of a person. So ostensibly, NASA is about experiments. So the guy that I read the book from, he was the guy that would make the experiments. But really, what was NASA really about? It was about kind of pride. Because if you think about it, the scientists were coming up with experiments so the space shuttle can take this little thing into space for some guy's, I don't know, experiment of what the temperature in outer space is, right? It wasn't like this was the real objective. And this is a mistake. Why are we traveling to the outer space? You know, we already had a satellite that went past Pluto, went to the edge of the solar system. I don't know if you ever saw it. Amazing picture. It's called the Little Blue Dot. They turned it around and you see the whole universe. I'll show it to you a picture. It's like unbelievable. You see the way the sun looks. Sorry, the way our Earth looks from the rays of the sun. It's just unbelievable. Hold on one second.
Basically, the Earth is like, it's a big black image, and you can see stars, and the Earth is just a few pixels of blue, and a little bit of a sunbeam caught in the image.
Yeah. So it's not, this is it, this dot. You can see it's not color, so you can't really see it properly, but it's like the Earth is just that dot. You see the dot?
Well, I don't need to, it's a dot.
See? So in other words, going all the way from outer space, and that's just like a tiny, that's already like zoomed in, like we're like a dot. So what's the point? The point is, the real truth is not going into outer space, it's going into inner space. It's about understanding our own soul. That's infinitely more difficult than understanding outer space, because outer space, what are you doing? They say, oh, what is this made out of? I don't know, you're more of a scientist than I am. It's made out of helium and this gas and that gas. Okay, so what? You figured out the composition of a star 1,000 light years away. But do you know your own composition? Do you know who you are? And that's already, as we begin life, I've said this many times, but it's very important. The first 2,000 years are called the 2,000 years of Torah. The next 2,000 years are called the 2,000 years of, first 2,000 years of Tohu, thank you, of chaos. The next 2,000 years are called the 2,000 years of Torah. The next 2,000 years are 2,000 years of Geula. And we see this very clearly in each of our lives. The first 2 years of a kid's life is toes, chaos, 2-year-old. I remember my little sister doing something as a 2-year-old, and my father was like, oh, the terrible twos, you know?
It's true.
Then you get into a start of balance. Sometimes, okay, right and wrong, you may not, and it's a big transition. And then you start to get into redemption, which is an individual growth of the individual. And that's real redemption, right? Because anything that is not permanent is not real. In Judaism, we speak about what's called Mayim HaMechazven. There was a kind of a river that every 7 years would dry up. And it says that this river is a false river. It's a lying river. Why? Because something that is real is permanent. In fact, they say that the Alter Rebbe, had he not included 3 words in the Tanya, he would have had 50,000 more Chassidim. And what were the 3 words? 3 words were Sfas emes tikun. The language of truth remains. Everything in the world that is not true will dissipate. You know, you had communism, professors, the countries. We're talking about hundreds of millions of people. China had 1 billion people. They brought them up in communism. But you know what? It just was one big lie. It wasn't true. The whole idea, the whole premise of communism is that there's a capitalist, blood-sucking individual. That's the premise. But the premise wasn't true. People have been entitled to do what they have to do. And in fact, it's very difficult to make money. And in fact, as we were kind of saying this before, the people that make money are very special people. They say that Rabbi, who himself was extraordinarily wealthy, not our Rebbe, but the author of the Mishnah, he would stand in front of a wealthy person. Why? He says, because this is a person that God has entrusted with money. I'm not a total youngster. I've had a lot to do in life. I can tell you clearly that the way I see it is the people that actually have money are the most mature people, the most generous people. These are people that, I'll just give one example. I have a friend, Yossi Malinsky. I remember when this guy started his company. It was like literally out of his garage. He just had an idea and he used his savings, and it was very hard, very, very hard to build a company. Okay, now let's say he has 50 employees, but the point is, it's a guy that has to pay, let's say, $1 million in salaries every month. Now, I know myself, okay? I know I'm not stupid. I don't have the shoulders to say there will be 50 people that won't eat if I don't press a button this month. You understand? It takes a lot of guts, and it's not easy. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertisements. You have to hire the right people. You have to manage. It's not like, oh, somehow he doesn't have to manage his family. So he's managing his family, he's managing his life, he's managing his commitments to his synagogue, managing his Judaism, and managing 50 people, and managing his customers, right? And he's paying his taxes, and to get better, he's giving 20% before taxes to charity. Now, if that's not a very special human being, what is? That's a talented, more than, that's a person that God has given. And the Rebbe says that the world needs wealthy people. They need people that have certain talents. And Gallup actually discovered that certain people that are given the talents, which is usually a lot of drive, to actually be able to implement this structure. And again, nobody's helping his business, right? His business is whatever, selling a product. He has to make the product. He has to find the customer. The customer has to want the product. Nobody's been forced to buy the product, right? So we actually have to be respecting people that create companies, that create value, because all it is value. You know, there's this foolishness that's going in the world today, which is like, oh, the big company is evil. So the fact of the matter is, you know, the CEO of a big company says his motto is be not evil. In other words, he's aware that he has power. He's aware, and he's trying to be the best person he can be. No, I'm not saying he is, but be that as it may, nobody is the best person. Nobody is perfect. So to take somebody just because, thank God, they worked hard and they earned a lot of money, you know, okay, you want to say the guy has an inheritance and he's using it for foolish things, I understand. But if person that usually makes the money, it comes with a lot of effort. And so we actually have to respect that. Now, Why am I saying all of this? Because we have to understand the essential truth. In other words, before the Baal Shem Tov, even in the Torah in a way, we were operating on the external reality, right? Certainly the way our society functions, we're operating, again, not to put down money, as I've just said, money is very good, you can use it for good things, but if what we need it for is to look good, or I have to have the nicest car, etc., I like to say, like, you want to know what you need, simple. If you were living on an island, what kind of a car would you need? A functional car. What kind of a house? A functional house. You don't need the nicest. So the point is that the external reality also has to be dealt with, right? You can't say, oh, we don't need law and order. Yeah, you bet you need law and order, right? I mean, just to debunk a certain theory, I saw the statistics that 80% of blacks want police and 60% want more police. So the fact of the matter is, when there's some kind of radical movement anti-law and order, it's not the majority. The majority wants safety. The majority want police. They want to be able to function in safety. So the Torah had to give us law and order. Shalom Aleichem.
היי.
Baruch Hashem.
את באה גם היום.
תודה.
אם היא באה גם היום, סימן שאתה נותן הרצאות כמו שצריך.
תודה.
אני צריך לבוא, אבל תדבר בעברית פעם הבאה.
בעזרת השם.
אני לא מבין אנגלית.
כן.
שאני אבין? אם אני לא מבין, אני לא מבין.
כן,
אתה לא
כן,
יודע.
כן, כן.
אוקיי?
נכון, נכון. So the idea is that you definitely need guidance in how to create a society, right from wrong. And that's what the Torah gives us. And then you have the next level. And this is already the inner work. And this is why the Torah comes in stages. First it comes to us, and it helps us, and not only the Jewish people, the whole world understand right from wrong. And that's, there's halacha, the mitzvahs, etc. I have a book actually called The Ethics of God, which is even just the mitzvahs, even Gentiles can look at the Torah and see, okay, well, this is the way you should behave in terms of charity and not being mean, etc., etc. But then you get to the inner work, and the inner work is very, very, very deep. The inner work is your potential. And none of us really properly understand our potential. Because, we've said this before, but it's worth saying it, the first thing that was said to a Jew is lech lecha. Lech lecha means go into your own potential. Lech, go, lecha, to yourself. And Hashem was telling Abraham, who was no fool, Hashem was telling him, I will show you who you are that you yourself don't know. The greatest genius in the world is always on something outside of himself. Almost nobody really understands themselves. In order to understand yourself, this is already the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. This is Chassidus. To unpack your own soul. So I want to share with you now a couple of teachings of Chassidus, which from the Baal Shem Tov, and they will really help us a little bit in this field. And I'm going to try to focus on things that are mainly about our own soul. And first and foremost,
Somebody have a pen for this charming lady here?
yeah, I have a pen.
Oh, you didn't say paper. You just said pen.
So it's a,
I brought my book yesterday. I didn't today. I'll ask for it.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So, first and foremost, it's a matana.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So, first and foremost,
I'm
we,
good.
we,
You said it's a pleasure.
Hashem knew that you would need it, so He prepared it for you.
Consider it a blessing. And
So there are really three teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that I want to share. The first teaching of the Baal Shem Tov is he says that Abraham, it says that Avraham Avinu had a son by the name of Yitzchak, and it said that Yitzchak looked like Avraham. Now, one of the reasons, because Litzani Adar, the mockers of the generation, they said, oh, they took in a Sufi, they took this strange or a leftover baby from the marketplace, whatever. They said it's their son, but he looked like him, so nobody could say that. But the Baal Shem Tov has a very beautiful teaching. He says that the son mirrors the Father. That we, the Jewish people, are like Hashem. What is the essence of Hashem? And this is very important to understand because many people believe in God. But the question, and this is where Islam, or at least radical Islam, goes wrong, is who is the God that you believe in? It's not enough to believe in God. You must have a good God. If your God is a God that desires the murder and, God forbid, the rape and sexual slavery of women, then you should really take the first exit off of your religion. I know a guy I mentioned the other day he was a Muslim. In fact, he was called the holy man of Islam. And he said to me, he cannot believe he left the religion, cannot believe, if you actually listen to the way, and they're saying their teachings, but the actual words are complete savagery. I mean, literally, I don't even want to go into it.
So you're saying the Quran?
The Quran is a book that encourages murder, and it encourages rape, and it is an evil, evil document. And anybody that challenges me, I would say that there's actually, as we speak right now, there is a reward from a former Muslim, $50,000 reward. Anybody can claim it. Anybody that can prove that Muhammad was not a pedophile, which means had sexual, with children, didn't kidnap women, didn't behead men, right? Wasn't a murderer. Basic thing, right? The basic thing in the Bible is do not murder. Anybody that can prove that to this man, he'll give them $50,000. Now, 1 out of 1.9 billion Muslims have ever been able to prove it, because the stories that we have of Islam comes from Islam. And the problem with, so to say, radicalism and the great evil of what Obama brought into the world and of what the Democratic Party is that they're ignoring the truth. And many times even the Republican Party. Everyone's trying to, Trump to some extent did a lot of good. He went to Saudi Arabia and he went against this evil. But anybody that's claiming, these people are a religion, and this is the mistake that we make in the West, is we say, all religions are similar. No, they're not similar. A religion that calls for the murder of other people, a religion that calls and it justifies taking women as sex slaves, as ISIS did, that justifies the murder of anybody that's not them, is evil. It's just that simple. God says don't murder, and the Quran is saying do murder. And the charter of Hamas is the last words, the will of Muhammad, which is see that behind the tree there's a Jew, come and kill him, So this is, anyway, I don't want to get too much into this, but the only reason I'm saying this is, for Islam to change, it cannot be interpreted literally. And the problem is that Islam will never change because there'll be a lot of people that will read the Quran. And again, if anybody disagrees with what I'm saying, I want you to read the Quran and, prove to me that it doesn't say that, because everything that we're saying comes directly. We don't have any sources on Muhammad, but from himself, from the Quran, from the Hadiths. And that's what it says. So what does that mean? It means the God that you believe in is very important. We have to believe in a God that wants love, that is compassionate, that wants us to come. So you can say, okay, if he's so compassionate, why does he do bad things? The answer is maybe he wants us to do good things. Maybe the world is designed in such a way that we are the ones that have to be his angels on earth. But the bottom line is, Elie Wiesel said to the Rebbe after the Holocaust, how can you believe in God? So the Rebbe said to him, what, are you going to believe in man now? It's a good point. How can you believe in man, right? So we see that the first premise, and this is a very important premise, because really the reason we get messed up in life is because we have everything in life, basically, where you can have one of three opinions. Either it's positive, or it's negative, or it's neutral. So, for example, I'm looking at this, this bunch of rocks over here. Is it positive to me? No. Is it negative to me? No. Is it neutral? Yes. I look at this tree. Is it positive? Yeah, it's a beautiful tree. It's giving me shade, So everything is how you look at it. So I want to ask you a question. How do you look at yourself? Positive, negative, or neutral? So we'll do soon a guided meditation to help us look at ourselves in a good way. But that's very, very important, to look at ourselves in a good way, because many times we look at ourselves negatively. Now, why would a person look at themselves negatively? because they looked at themselves positively and somebody was jealous of that. Somebody that looked at themselves negatively was jealous of you who looked at yourself positively. And so what do? They keep at it, man. Keep at it. Everything to make you ashamed of yourself. Ever had a person that was like just nonstop at trying to insult you? Like a year, 2 years, 3 years, everything. Why? The truth is they don't even know what they're doing. It's not conscious, because consciously we're actually good people. If you ask the person, are you a good person? Of course I'm a good person. Nobody says, oh, I'm a bad person. So what is it? It's subconsciously we get jealous of the fact that they have a positive self-image. We have a need to put them down. I know a guy, he told me a very, very sad story, but his mother, maybe it was postpartum depression or something, she kind of I don't know, she kind of went crazy. So the older sister took over the household, and she was great, and she was cooking, and she was doing everything. But the mother so harassed the older sister that eventually she kind of went into a catatonic state. And it's a very serious thing, because ultimately it's about kind of killing a certain sense of joy that the person has. And so we, have to be quite strong. It says, Oiz v'chedva, by Hashem there is strength and joy. It's the nature of every human being to have a certain pride and joy in them. But often that gets attacked. And if you're not careful, it can really get eliminated. And that's why I feel like if a person's like over 40 years old and they're happy, you have to really respect that person, because they've been through enough of life that they've been bullied. And if yet they can still be happy, it's a sign that they've really overcome it, which is not easy, because most people don't overcome it. We, in a certain sense, accommodate it in our lives. We don't really eliminate that thought that, no, it was that guy that was wrong, and I am 100% okay. I know somebody, and she went through a very difficult experience, and she was depressed, seriously depressed for a year, 2 years, a serious way. And then she decided, okay, I got to get out of this. So she Googled like how to have like, I don't know, self-compassion, this and that. And then she realized that if I have a part of myself that wants to heal myself, there must be a higher part of me, because in her own sense, she had a negative self-image. But there was a part of her that still cared about her. So she realized that must be Hashem. From this, she was able to realize that there's Hashem in this world. Because Hashem's love for us can never be broken. Anybody that's really healthy can never really, really hate, because they're made up of love. I spoke to a mother the other day, and I said to her, wow, her son went through something very, very difficult. And wow, it's amazing that you were with him for so long and you helped him out, and now he's okay, it's so beautiful. She said, yeah, I'm just so happy he's okay. All the stress that she took, all the worry, all the help that she gave him was all, in her eyes, he was always okay. He went through something difficult, right? So when we judge someone, we label them as not okay, we're fundamentally doing what the dark side wants, because we can never be mean unless we label them first. I once wrote a book. It was a manuscript, but I never really published it. But the book was, thank God I've written about 25 books. So, the book was, you can check it out on Amazon if you want. Feel free to order. Give a good review.
You have a תרגום לעברית?
No, it's not in Hebrew. So, but long story short, it was a book about kind of how the Holocaust happened and the situation that we're in now, different things. But the truth is, a lot of times when you write, you can try this, very interesting, just start writing. Sometimes Hashem will come through. The Rambam says that there's a prophecy in writing. So a lot of the stuff I write, I like start with an idea, and like amazing things will come out, and it's not many people this will occur to, and you can try it yourself. But what did come out with something really remarkable is there are 3 things that have to happen, God forbid, for a Holocaust to happen. Number 1 is somebody has to hate, has to be a Hitler, right? Like an Obama. Obama was really a malicious person, you know?
Obama?
Yeah,
The American Obama.
American Obama.
Why was he a malicious person?
It's a good question. So first of all, in terms of action, there's 500,000 dead Syrian. There was a coup, basically put the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. That's I don't know if you know about the Muslim Brotherhood, the largest terrorist organization. He allowed ISIS, terrible 100 days of Trump, ISIS was gone. So that means he pulled out American troops. He allowed one of the worst terrorist organizations, many years of raping, pillaging, killing, which was directly related to his actions. He directly was related to reducing the American forces in Afghanistan. And again, a lot of people got hurt badly because of that. In Libya, he started the civil war, which is going on till today, savage civil war, right? He started it. So you're talking about a person, and he authorized the CIA to do drone killings, massive amount of drone killings, which is I disagree with that because I believe that there is such a thing as war. But in war, you have to allow your enemy to do peace. You don't do viciousness. You don't do just boom, boom, boom. There has to be a certain structure to the situation. So we're talking about an individual that has at least in one country of all the things that I mentioned, has directly, because of his direct actions, we're not talking about indirect, direct actions, 500,000 people killed, 50 million people refugees from one country. And that's not a guy that doesn't know what he's doing. I don't want to go into too much of it, but my belief system is very simple. He's a person that we would call a malcontent, a person that's angry at the world. And when we're angry at the world, he wrote a book called Dreams of My Father. What happens is, I want to shift away from this specific point, but just to bring out that a human being, there's a cartoon about this teddy bear that got thrown out and he got angry and then he becomes malicious. People become malicious because they're feeling angry, and then there's a part of them that feels it's not fear that you are okay, you're feeling peace while I'm feeling such negative energy. And so what they want to do, and I remember seeing a poll, it bothered me a lot, that 18% of America was angry at Obama, and I thought, oy vey, why? Okay, it's one thing to disagree with someone, but if somebody made you angry, they got you to do what they wanted. It says the Jewish people were in Egypt. It says, Vayero esanu hamitzrim, the Egyptians, they did evil to us, but it could also be interpreted as they wanted us to be evil. What were the Nazis really trying to do? They were trying not to kill the Jewish body, but the Jewish soul. That's why terrorism is to inflict terror. It's a lot of like random evil, because if you're living in a constant state of anxiety, it messes a person up, right? So the role of a government is to create safety and security. And what do evil people want? And you'll find this with, I don't want to label, but we'll say it, the liberals. All of these laws upon laws upon laws. Now, a friend of mine, a big psychiatrist, told me one of the ways we abuse people subconsciously is we create restrictions on them. So you can't consciously go out and say, oh, I'm just going to abuse you. But imagine there's an abusive father. So you can imagine he's very strict. You have to be home now. You got to finish the cereal, blah, 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 blah. It's a form of abuse. Imagine there's a loving father. So, okay, you need to make some rules, but you're not a tyrant. Tyranny is a form of subconscious abusiveness. So, why am I bringing this all up? So I was saying about how a Holocaust actually happens. It happens because one person basically hates the world. You know, you may not know this, but I was friendly with a guy. Long story short, he helped save thousands of people, including my grandfather. And he was then part of, like the CIA, part of the intelligence, because he spoke many languages. And he heard this from a general in Germany right after the war that Hitler gave an order to blow up the food factories of Germany before he killed himself. That means Hitler hated the Germans as much as he hated everyone else. The Iranian regime, they hate the Iranians. They don't mind if Iran, 80 million people blow up. Hamas, they don't mind. I mean, they've put these people to slave labor. They're the ones that are putting all these people. They care nothing about, quote unquote, the Palestinians, the Arabs there. They are the enemy of those people just as much as they are our enemy, because people that are evil, this is a mistake that we make. We say, oh, this black gang, they don't, most crime happens against black people. They're not, I say crime is very, very non-racial. Crime is very much against wherever they can get their money, right? So when we look at it and say, oh, that person comes from a group, and they say, well, we really have to put them in charge because they're claiming that their group is a victim and they're standing up for the group. No, they are the worst possible thing, and we are guilty. Israel is guilty of allowing Hamas and the PA because we allowed terrorists to terrorize Arabs that would be infinitely better off. Now, just in case a person thinks, like, what are you talking about? Simple question. Right over here we have in Israel over 1 million Arabs. Now, if you asked any of them, would you like to go live in the PA? They can go right now to live in the PA, go live in Gaza. None of them are going. How come? So we're so cruel? Why aren't they going to live under their two countries right over here? They can go live on. The answer is because they're savages and they don't want to live under, quote unquote, their own leaders because they're not leaders, they're terrorists, they're evil people. So, focusing on the positive, having the right understanding of who a person is, including ourselves, is what Chassidus is all about. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov brought to us. When the Baal Shem Tov was a little boy, he would run away. He was an orphan. He would run away from the orphanage. And once a tzaddik, a hidden tzaddik, found him, and he said, young man, or young boy, are you not afraid to be in the forest alone? He says, my father taught me to never fear anything but Hashem. So he said to him, are you the son of Eliezer? And he said, yes. And eventually he took him, a whole long story. So the Baal Shem Tov then said that he's running away because people tell lies. So at 5 years old, the Baal Shem Tov already understood that people can be liars. And yet he becomes the greatest lover of people. What does this show us? The Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, was a great lover of people. But he was not naive in any way. So it's an interesting dichotomy. When Netanyahu said that he's going to run in the Knesset, the Rebbe said with a smile, you're going to have to fight 119 people. You know how many people are in the Knesset? 120. And he said, huh?
You need to fight with everyone.
With everyone.
Inside of it.
Right. And the Rebbe and Netanyahu said, yeah, that's the only way. Meaning, you want to get something good done, you don't have to fight with the world. But you have to do so in a way that understands that you're here for them at the same time. It's very deep. The Rebbe was here for Judaism, but he didn't hate anyone, even the guy that's against Judaism. Because he understood, I'll give you another example, an amazing story. There was a guy by the name, what's his name? I actually met a cousin of his in Kaganovich. Anybody know who Kaganovich was? Kaganovich was like the third person under Stalin. Now you can imagine the blood on a person's hand, like the one that arranged the hunger in Ukraine to subdue the farmers. He was a Yid. He was convinced in the Communist Party. And this guy Kaganovich, he literally was he was the brains of the operation, right? So when somebody came to the Rebbe and told the Rebbe that this guy Kaganovich has an apartment in Russia afterwards, so the Rebbe said he's a big Russia, he's a very wicked person. It was very rare that the Rebbe should ever say that. And then he sent somebody to him to try to get him to do tshuva. You know what that means? So it's not to say, oh, I'm so naive I can't see the evil. Or I'm so angry I can't see the good. It's no. I understand the evil, but I believe that the essence of everyone and everything is good. Very important distinction. Because if we get angry in life, we can't be happy. If we're naive in life, eventually we'll get angry. But I remember seeing on a movie, this girl was sitting like a teenager. She didn't know what she was doing with her life. So she was sitting and there was an older woman next to her. She was like trying to help her. What do you like to do? She says, oh, I like people. So she goes, that will change, my dear. That will change. So in other words, being able to look and understand who we really are. We are God in a body. And that's why just like God is compassionate, we're all compassionate. You say, oh, that person is being mean. Okay, that person has a Yetzer Hara. And you also have a Yetzer Hara. The person has a bad day, is frustrated. And each and every one of us, if circumstances, the pressure, I asked a friend of mine who, a very bright guy, speaks about, anyway, without going into the details, but a circumstance which was very, very drastic. It says, Noshim Rachmonius Bishluas Yaldeim. Compassionate women, they were like in the hunger or whatever so I said to him, how does a person do such a thing? He said to me, pressure. A person is under tremendous pressure, so they flip, right? We would do things that we would never do because we're feeling so hurt and so anxious that the way we're thinking is negative. That's why it's very important for people to think positive. One of the things that the Rebbe brought to the world is to see the world for the truth of what it really is. It is God's garden. And so if you go into a garden and you see the whole thing is overrun, it doesn't mean it's not a garden. It means you have to be a better gardener to the world. Plant it better, take out the weeds. But the garden wants to be beautiful. A person wants to be beautiful. A person wants to be good. And that's the job of a Jew, of everyone, which is the, Baal Shem Tov says, it says, Ki atem tiyu li eretz chayfetz. You should be for me a land, like a precious land. He says, within the land, within the ore of the earth, there's precious metals, but you got to dig it. He says, the Jewish people, by nature, we have intrinsic greatness and morals and codes and ethics. You look at who gives the most charity and all this stuff, it's Jewish people. And so sometimes you have to dig. And that's my job, is to bring out the diamonds within us, the diamonds within the Jew. The Rebbe once, he would stand many, many, many hours on Sunday, and there was an older lady that came by. She was like, 90, and the Rebbe was 90 years old. She said, Rebbe, how do you stand for so long? So the Rebbe said, when you count diamonds, you don't get tired. So when the Rebbe looked at a Jew, you could even see this, I saw this on a video. The Rebbe was once speaking, and the Rebbe was a very private person. And he didn't look like he was happy. And then somebody said L'chaim, and he looks at this person and his face lights up. Because the Rebbe had genuine love for all people. The Rebbe stood for hours every single Sunday, gave out $1 to anybody in the world. Anyone. Gave them a blessing. It didn't matter your color, your religion, he was there for you. The Rebbe would answer, in fact, Gentiles before he would answer Jews, because he said the Jew would understand if I'm going to answer him later. For the Gentile, he wrote a letter to the rabbi, he's expecting an answer back now. The Rebbe honored people. In fact, it's very, very beautiful what I'm going to tell you. The Rebbe there was a black lady that worked in the Rebbe's home. I don't know, maybe she helped out. The Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, people would have paid $1 million for a meeting with the Rebbe. The Rebbe wouldn't make any exclusions. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin wouldn't sit down to eat before she was sitting down to eat with them. You know what that means? They didn't say, oh, you're my cleaning lady, you can clean the house. They wouldn't eat at their table before she was sitting down with them. So you're talking about a person that had basic sensitivity to the dignity of every single human being. And that's what Judaism is all about. Basic sensitivity to the dignity of every human being. And that's the challenge in life. And that's the difference between good and evil. Because in the end of the day, what he who mustn't be named brought into this world, the other day, Obama writes, right after Trump got shot, we have to, our politics, we have to have love, not love, we have to be better in our politics. But who created the rhetoric of demeaning the enemy, of putting the other person down. And now I'm not saying that the right didn't start responding, but the thing is that the whole rhetoric, like when you grew up in America, nobody spoke the way that people are speaking today. You look at YouTube, you look at the comments, it's disgusting. People are using not only vulgar language, but hateful language, spiteful language. And that's not acceptable. Basic human dignity, which we have to work on. I have to say about Tanya, Tanya's very good at always using beautiful language. Basic respect. And it begins ultimately with respect for ourselves. Because if I truly respected myself, and this is really what the Arabs are after, they're after the dignity of the Jewish people. And that's why they're savage, not all, many Arabs are very nice, and we have Arabs that are serving the Israeli army and very wonderful, really very wonderful people. But what are the terrorists after ultimately? They're after the destruction of the dignity, of the civility of who we are. What do they want? They want us to be like them. And that's what my book, anyway, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but ultimately, and this is what it is. And so you were saying this the other day, there's a lot of money being put into the universities, and ultimately, what is it? It's a war between decency and love and respect versus people that have a negative self-image and are jealous of others that have a positive self-image, and their whole life, I blogged this the other day, is like, how sad is it that a person is spending their efforts on doing what? Putting me down? Really have nothing better than to put me down? Like, I give you a lot of other better activities. I'm not worth you putting me down, So, but this is the way we are. It's like a subconscious thing that when we get into that negative space, which is crazy.
No one can put you down if you don't allow it.
If you don't believe it. If you don't believe it. A person...
You also allow it because if you know who you are,
right.
You look at him and you're not down. You just look
right.
at the person and say,
right.
I feel compassion to him.
Right. Right. Yeah. One other teaching, what you're saying is 100% true. One other teaching of the Baal Shem Tov is that he says the essence of the Jew is the same essence of God. And this is why the Baal Shem Tov loved the simple Jew, not the great scholar. Because the more we have, he says scholarship is a title. So let's say you say, okay, I'm a rabbi, but being a rabbi is just a title. The person that doesn't think highly of himself, that person reflects God, because God, so to say, doesn't think highly of himself either. He's just God. He's just like a guy. He's a person, a regular person. In other words, he may have infinite abilities, but he doesn't have an ego. There's no ego in God. Right? Somebody that the Friedrich Rebbe says that when when your hand is hurting, it's a sign that the hand is not well. When we're busy thinking about ourselves a lot, it's a sign that our ego is not well. Because when you're feeling good about yourself, you're not thinking about yourself. So if God is healthy, which I assume he is, he doesn't think about himself. He thinks about everybody else. So God has perfect humility, which is why he appreciates when we do something for him.
But Hashem brought us with ego. So this is the catch.
He brought us with ego?
He brought us to this world and we have ego. So you say Hashem and ego, and we have ego. So why did it complicate this thing?
Well, we have to have an ego to exist, but ultimately, like we said the other day, we have to use our ego for the right things. And ultimately, there's a great line from the Baal Shem Tov. He says the whole universe exists because of the ego of the Jew, but that's only if we use it for the right reason. Because when the light first came into the universe, the light wanted to retract back out. So ego is like kind of a grounding in this world, like the me. But that's only if you use it for holiness, then it makes the light stay in this world. So fundamentally speaking, I think what the Baal Shem Tov is trying to teach us can be summed up in basically two sentences, which is number one, we are pure godliness. We have his attributes of love and kindness. And everything else that looks good or looks better is not better. The best is that simple essence that we all have. And the second thing is that energy is a wave. And so every moment you're affecting the world. So the energy that's going to come back to you is the energy that's coming out of you. And so therefore, so much of what the Baal Shem Tov teaches is be positive, be happy. Because the more we put in positive energies, positive waves, the more that affects ourselves and affects the world. And that's kind of the idea that it's a mirror, God will come. Now, there are thousands of amazing teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is unbelievable. We really have to do everything in our power to study his teachings. I'm working on a book.
What was the second one again now? One was about 11. What was the second?
One was about what?
Okay, Baal Shem Tov, there's two things that you had just mentioned.
Yeah, the first I said was the idea of knowing that our essence is pure and beautiful.
Okay.
The second is that the energy we put out of us impacts the world. And really what quantum physics says, that we are all, whether you like it or not, you're putting out energy.
Correct.
You are an energy generator.
Got it.
And so we want to make sure that the energy we're putting out is love, is good. And that again is that's the war between good and evil. The evil is trying to make us miserable, so we put out their energy, negative energy. And the people that are evil have really been hijacked by evil. Evil is a real force. And they've been hijacked by them, and they've been manipulated, and they're resentful. And that's why I speak about, a lot of people don't realize that when you get a guy, and again, I'm not trying to put anyone down, I'm just bringing out the point because it's affecting millions of people and affecting the world. When you get a guy like Obama that rallies all these people behind negativity. Oh, we're the righteous ones and they're the evil ones, or we got to do this. Behind it all is only one thing. What did Hitler do? The same thing. We're the righteous ones, they're the evil ones. Behind it all is just spreading the energy of hate. So if you have a leader that is here and saying, okay, there are people that are down, let's pick them up. Not there are people that are down, let's kill the people that are putting them down. Understand the difference? Obama didn't do anything to help the blacks raise up. Black Lives Matter, for example. How are you helping black lives by that statement? Are you actually lifting up black people that need to be lifted up? Or are you shaming white people? Because one is not helping the other, right? Many white people are helping black people, right? Your job here is not to put someone down because you were shamed, you need to shame someone else, but to lift everyone up. And that takes a lot of courage and convictions, and a person has to know who they are and really work hard, and the Rabbi was the best at that. The Rabbi had very high values, but he was never putting anyone down, he was always lifting everyone up. So it could be I myself have been influenced by the right-wing media that I watched for a while until I stopped watching media, so maybe that's even why the words that I'm saying about him are coming out. But generally I do think that what I'm saying is true, that America was in a very positive space. We were in a loving, in a compassion, in a very good space. And that could very well have been because of the Rebbe, because when you have a tzaddik like the Rebbe in the world, it has this tremendous positivity. But as soon as, from the Rebbe had the stroke, then already you got Clinton with his Mishigasin, and then whatever. Basically, we have to be the ones to really make a very powerful, we'll do a little meditation to bring us into positive energy. And so let's do a little meditation. So close our eyes and take a deep breath and breathe in Hashem, breathe out all fears and negativities, breathe in love and truth and compassion, breathe out any negative image that you have of yourself and of others, and breathe in this whole universe as one. It's all really just God's energy. And breathe out all the negative energy that exists. And just know that at every moment, the truth of all truths is that the essence of all essence is this unconditional, loving, humble God, which we and all the souls and the essence of all things are. And once we understand that, we can let go of anger, because anger is feeling that something is unjustified or something was malicious, and often the person does that because subconsciously they want us to be like them. They want us to be malicious. So if you can understand the motive, that the motive is coming from their pain, right? They're not coming from a place of convictions, they're coming from a place of their pain, then you can feel compassion on them. And as you feel compassion changes anger to love. So let's try to feel compassion on all those that hurt us and that hurt. And in this way, let's ask Hashem to bring about His kingdom, in which we all get to realize that we're part of Him, we're bringing Him to this world, and we're all infinitely growing. And in this way, Hashem's kingdom will come to this world, and everybody will have a part in it. The world will be all the hostages will be free. Everybody will be free of being hostage to negativity and evil. And may Hashem bless us all physically and spiritually, that we literally should have everything. And in this way, we'll be in a positive space. And please God, we'll all do our role, especially as Jewish people spreading light. L'chaim v'levracha. We'll come out of the meditation, 3 and a 2 and a 1. Thank you.